Checkmate.
Hey, Grandpa!
Yes, my grandson, what is it?
Why do you have this game in your attic? It's called LittleBig Planet. Grandpa?
Hey YouTube, in this video I'm going to show you Big Booty Toggle.
Occasionally you're going to get stuck.
My name is Jacksepticeye, and welcome to LittleBig Planet 3!
LittleBig Planet, or as Sony likes to call it, a glorified paperweight. Growing up, I'm realizing that there's a whole generation of children who just didn't grow up with LittleBig Planet. Back in the day, this game series was considered some of Sony's best work. This colorful little platformer changed the world of Sony with its unique gameplay, its huge community, so much DLC, and just the general vibe of the game. It was what the PlayStation needed at the time. I mean, the first game practically saved the console to begin with, and Sackboy became Sony's mascot. But since the servers shut down, I've been wondering, what was the best LittleBig Planet game? It could be this one, probably not this one. I don't know, I never played this one. I'm gonna be going over all the LittleBig Planet games here, which also means I won't be talking about games like Sackboy: A Big Adventure or any of the spin-offs. I would have gone over prehistoric moves, but I don't have a move controller and I really don't want to buy one. Anyway, the year is 2008. Sony finally figures out how to make a video game. They forgot about it shortly after. LittleBig Planet 1 released, a game about a little sack dude traveling around the world helping creators and stopping an evil guy from stealing stickers. With prize bubbles, regular bubbles, 10,000 different versions of shark levels, different colored bubbles, this game had it all. Out of all the games here, this one's the most nostalgic to me. I did play the other ones growing up, but this was the one that I stuck with, mostly because I couldn't connect the two servers, but you know, that's besides the point. This game is just simple fun. I know that the other games clear this one out of the park with all its features and additions, but you just can't go wrong with simple LBP. At the very least, I definitely replay the story mode of this one a lot more than I do with the other games in the series. The game is just oozing with creativity. You can create and customize almost everything in this, like your hub, your costumes, and even create whole new levels. The great part about it was that the story levels themselves in the game were made in the same create mode that you can make levels out of. I even made some levels back in the day a long time ago, like SpongeBob and Mario vs. Sonic. This is a dark path I should have kept in the back of my brain. Little fact about this game actually, my YouTube avatar of Sonic wearing shades and a Santa coat was actually from LBP. I don't remember which one it was from, but I'm gonna assume it was one. If you're not really a big fan of creating levels in the game, you can always play the huge amount of UGC levels, by yourself or with friends. Could play the huge amount of community levels by yourself or with friends. You could. Fun fact, actually, by the time LittleBig Planet 2 was coming out, there was actually almost 3 million community levels in this game. To be fair, most of them were just copies of bomb survivals, shark survivals, plane survivals, train survivals, and any other survivals you could think of. Also the time savers, skateboard levels, and a Sonic house. To all its credit, though, it did give us one of the best YouTube series of all time.
This is good father-funding kind for when you become my dad.
There's a lot of games on this list to talk about here, so I won't get into all the big technical stuff or all the fun facts about the game, but overall, the first LittleBig Planet is such a great game. It was an amazing starting point of the series, and just a really simple yet insanely fun game to play, even to this day. Again, the other games in this series demolished this one tenfold, but you know what? This is the only game where I've seen Mario, Sonic, and Hulk Hogan in the same level, so you know what? It's gotta be good. If nobody else got me, I know that How to Make Sonic No DLC got me. Remember when I said you can't go wrong with simple LBP? Yeah, I was proven wrong here. Stupid PSP can't even handle 3 layers. LittleBig Planet for the PSP, released in 2009, 1 year after the PS3 version. It's more of a diet-sized version of the original LittleBig Planet rather than a full-on spin-off or sequel. There's less tools to work with in create mode, less collectibles, costumes, no multiplayer, etc. It's got a new story though, so that's pretty cool. It's nothing super unique though, it's just Sackboy going on a vacation after the events of the first game. He meets more of the creator curators and unites them all at a carnival. The levels themselves in the story aren't all that bad actually. especially. They are very simplified compared to the first game, but it's still pretty cool to see an all-new story mode with unique levels and new characters for a smaller sized game. It did continue the theme of the real-world locations like LBP1, though, which I just now realized I forgot to talk about. You got locations like Egypt, Hollywood, Iran, etc. Again, the story in this game is very heavily simplified and just a diet version of LBP1, but even then, this game still holds the exact same charm as the first game. The community section in this game isn't really all that to talk about. There were some good levels in the mix, but there wasn't really a lot going on here. I mean, it was the first game in the whole series to get its servers taken down anyway, so I'm not all too surprised. Overall, there's not much to talk about. It's just a diet-sized version of the original game. It feels more like it was just a DLC for the first game, but moved to Sony's popular handheld at the time. Even if it's just a smaller version of the original game, I still think it's a worthy game to check out if you want more of the original LittleBigPlanet style. It controls nice, yeah, I've said all I can say about this one. One of the first 2D platformers to get a sequel and be good? Unless you were Mario or Sonic. Okay, you know what? First Sony platformer to get a good sequel. The first LittleBigPlanet was amazing. As I said before, it was a great starting point to the series. But the sequel? Ooh. Media Molecule, the studio that created LBP1, took the Mario Galaxy 2 approach with this game. As in, they wanted to expand the original game a lot more with different content, but over time they realized just how much content they were putting into the game. So after 3 years of the first game, they decided to make it all for a sequel instead, which eventually gave us LittleBigPlanet 2. This game took what was great about LittleBigPlanet 1, and instead of getting rid of all of the bad stuff, they took it and said, how about we make one of the best games, like, ever? And that's being said without talking about all the great new gimmicks and materials in this game, like bounce pads! I love bounce pads! The story in this game offered a lot more dramatic and intenseness, that's a word, right, to the game. Sackboy joins a team of curators called the Resistance to stop a vacuum cleaner, and we stop it by throwing cakes at it. We will never get a game series this perfect like ever again. The great thing about the story in this game, other than the more dramatic tones, was the characters and voice acting. In the previous games, the characters were just cardboard cutouts, which isn't a bad thing at all. It gave us some great characters, like the King, Queen, and Henry. But in LBP2, we got characters that moved like Sackboy, characters that were able to use their voices and interact with the environment better. Like, for example, Larry Da Vinci, who plays the role as Sackboy's mentor and the leader of the Resistance. Or Victoria Battysphere, a creator centered around making pastries and robots. That's just 2 examples, but there's not a single bad or unlikable character in this game. They're much more memorable than the ones in LBP1. And for the levels themselves, they had a more colorful and poppy vibe to them. I'll say that in terms of level design, LBP1 is better because I felt like it just had a tighter design when it came to platforming. But LBP2 made it up with all its new powers and gimmicks. My personal favorite here has got to be the one with the controllable bunnies and dogs and whatnot. Each animal had something new to offer. It was really cool. I also learned how to play pool from this game thanks to the mini games, and now I demolish like everyone in my family at pool, so you know what? Thanks, LBP2. LittleBigPlanet 1's story, while still a great time overall, felt more like a demonstration for what you could make in the game. LittleBigPlanet 2's story, even if it was still a demonstration of what you could make, it made the game feel so much more than that. There were also a handful of other stories you could play through thanks to the DLC packs, like the Disney level packs, or the biggest ones of them all, the Move Pack and the Cross Controller Pack. These story modes give the player new materials, gimmicks, and even lets you use new hardware to play the game in fun new ways. LBP1 had similar stuff too, but the way it's handled in 2 was much better. Every returning DLC, level, and all the data from the previous game is in this one now too. There was practically no reason to go back to LBP1, especially after seeing all the new create stuff people were able to mess with. Like I said before, they added bounce pads, sack bots, controlinators, new logic, new everything. I'm not a creator, and never will be either, so I can't really get into this stuff the same way other people can when I myself don't even have a lot of the knowledge with it. But what I can say is that what people made with these new materials was insane. RPGs, full-on movies, some people got 3D engines working, and bomb survivals with superpowers. Holy f***. There was a huge problem with copy levels, especially with the Mortal Kombat levels, but when you actually attempted to find stuff, it was usually gold. LittleBigPlanet 2 is the gold standard for a sequel. It did almost nothing wrong, and it's also the game that pushed the series into overdrive. Get it? Overdrive? Because the next game had cars? Oh wait, never mind, the next one was the Vita one. A little bit after after the release of LBP2, Sony decided to port the game over to the Vita, Sony's successor to the PSP at the time, with the help of Tarsier Studios along with a few other studios to help out. But for some reason, the game got turned into its own thing. And for a spin-off made for such an underperformed platform, it was actually somewhat bigger than LBP2. Well, create-wise anyway, but we'll get to that eventually. The game's story takes place on a planet close to Craft World, Carnivalia, a carnival and amusement park themed world that's been taken over by the Puppeteer. And Sackboy embarks on a quest to defeat the Puppeteer and save all the curators he meets along the way. The plot itself is very simple, but the presentation and storytelling easily sets this game as dark and mysterious, and a more mature vibe for LBP. You can very much tell the studio that made this were the same studio that made Little Nightmares. It definitely feels like an LBP2 2, if you know what I mean. Which, to be fair, that's all it really needs to be for a spin-off. It's not supposed to be the big meat of the franchise, setting a new standard for the series. It's just a fun spin-off game, and at its core, it's a portable LBP2. One of the big parts of the game that separates it from the prior two games is its minigames. Sure, both LBP 1 and 2 had minigames, but in Vita they utilized the system fully. Like, for example, the stack game with Tetris blocks, or the air hockey, or the bullseye minigame. There's a lot of minigames that don't use the touchpad stuff, but these stick out the most to me. And even in the main story too, you had to use both the front and back touchpad to complete levels and grab collectibles. As for the create mode, it's just the same as LBP2's, just with a touchscreen tool and whatnot. I never really messed with the create mode in this game. I mean, to be honest, the game itself is fairly new to me. I just got a Vita recently, and while I'm loving what I've played so far, I don't really have much else to talk about with it. The most nostalgia I have with this game is watching Kabanamani456 Let's Plays of the game, but I never played the game myself until just recently. I know the game had some crazy community levels, but that's the thing, I was never able to play them. It's the one game that got away from me up until now. It definitely is such an underrated game though. It did everything that 1 and 2 did right and added its own spin on things. All the DLC you had from 1 and 2 even worked in this game. I'm kinda sad I never grew up with it because that's all I really have to say about it. The Japanese box art was kinda cool. A little after LBP2 came out, United Front Games, the creators of Mod Nation Racers, got tasked by Sony to make their sequel of Mod Nation into a LittleBigPlanet spin-off racing game. And first of all, f*** you Sony for canceling Mod Nation 2. Second of all, thank you, Sony, for giving me this beautiful, beautiful game. This game's a bit of a weird one. It's either a game you absolutely love or absolutely hate. And for me, I absolutely love this game. The story of this game takes place back on Craft World, as a gang of raiders called the Horde set off on a mission to steal everything used to create stuff just to keep all the creativity to themselves. So like always, Sackboy goes on a journey to stop the Horde and save Craft World once again, while visiting old friends and locations, as well as some new ones. I don't know why we're in a car this time, but you know what, maybe Craft World just wanted to be different that day. The levels and minigames are set up the exact same way as the prior games, except this time you're racing against opponents Mario Kart style, which also means, holy shit, is that the back of Sackboy? Oh yeah, I'm in a car! Eat my dust, boy! I'm having a blow, shit. Yeah, I think I like this game a little too much. The game took what made Mod Nation work and combines it with what made LittleBig Planet work. And yeah, there's a lot of people that say they don't really combine it well at all, but I think aside from a few issues, it's a pretty great execution. Maybe I'm just this game's one defender, but I don't know, it's just really fun. The way they handled how all the previous worlds looked in 3D makes this game just so nice to look at. They returned to the cardboard characters here, which yeah, in my opinion, that makes some of the characters more forgettable because they feel more like decorations in the map rather than actual characters. But you know what? You can't look at me and say Captain Cyrus over here isn't one of the best characters in the whole series. Go on, say it. Yeah, that's what I thought, b****. The create mode is, not very good at all. Like, holy shit, this isn't good. They combined the create mode of Mod Nation and LBP into one engine, but for some reason they removed the stuff that made both engines more optimized for the player. Like, for example, in Mod Nation, you were able to auto-make tracks to make it easier customizing it and even changing the tracks. In this game, it's not here at all. It's just a really inconsistent and tedious editor. In all its credit, though, we did get some pretty cool levels out of it. 99% of them were just remakes of Mario Kart levels, but we also got some pretty cool levels that changed the game's whole genre, too. The game didn't even get a lot of DLC either. Honestly, the only one I can think of is this Kevin Butler DLC that came with the game. Didn't even take a year later for him to get sued by Sony for being in a Nintendo commercial. All the DLC from 1 and 2 worked though, so that's pretty cool. Sonic Sackboy lives on. More of the story here is, despite its weird little quirks, LBP Karting is another amazing game in the series. And more of you people need to talk about it. Same goes for Mod Nation Racers. Who knows, maybe if this video does well enough, I'll make a Mod Nation video.
Oh wow, Grant!
Grandpa, this Little Big whatever you call it sounds really great. Whatever happened to it? Oh, you know, they just stopped making them.
Brendan, you can't forget the third game.
Psst, I don't know what you're talking about. There was no Little Big Planet 3.
You can't forget your past, Brendan. Tell them about the fall of Little Big Planet.
Ugh, fuck. After the mass amount of LBP products being made, Media Molecule wanted to step away from the series to work on their newest project, Dreams. Like father, like son, I guess. So, Sumo Digital took place of MM, and they did, great! The story of Little Big Planet 3 takes place on Bunkum, a planet close to Craftworld similar to Carnavalia. Sackboy gets tricked by the newest villain, Newton, to free the Titans, the planet's group of big baddies. After Newton gets possessed by the Titans, Sackboy sets off to find 3 of Bunkum's heroes, Oddsock, a dog-like sack thing that can run fast, wall run, and wall jump. Hold on, I got a Discord notification. What the f***? And Swoop, a bird that can fly and glide. And there's a whole lot of new stuff in this story, like hub worlds, adventure maps, side quests, shops, and more. And if I'm being honest, I really don't like any of this. In my opinion, they tried fixing what wasn't broken and made things just way more complex and uninteresting. The story is a big fetch quest. Get marbles, save characters, rinse and repeat 2 more times, and boom, game's beaten. And that just kind of makes all these extra things really annoying to me. I despise these hub worlds. They're just super boring to run through. The new characters are a cool addition, but the bad part is that they just don't use them at all in the story. I would talk more about the story here, but you know, my game got corrupted when I got to Swoop's world. So you know what? If the game doesn't want me here, why should I even try? There's also a mini story mode in this game now too. It's called the Poppet Puzzles, hosted by characters from LBP 2. This was essentially here to teach the player how to create levels and get prizes. This didn't really spark any interest in me because again, I don't create, but I'm sure fans of create mode really enjoyed these. Speaking of creating, this game added a lot of new creation content. Like for example, 16 layers, layer launchers, climbable walls, a tool that you can create any power-up, device, or weapon that you want. There's a whole lot of new stuff here, and you're probably wondering why I got so scared to talk about this game in the first place. Everything they added here was so good it seems, but the problem is, everything else they added. Like profile corruptions, game diverges, having to reset your game 10 different times just to join a game for 5 minutes! Whatever this thing is. This game was a buggy, broken mess at launch. And on top of that, they split the community in half thanks to both the PS3 and 4 versions not being crossplay. Although, a lot of the issues have been fixed since. The online before the server shut down were still awful, but the game itself? It was okay. But at the same time, that doesn't really matter. The game should have been stable when it came out. Fixing it when the community already decided to leave didn't fix anything. I don't know if this is the fault of Sumo Digital or Sony or whatever, but that doesn't change the fact that this game should have never turned out the way it did. There's a lot of cut content, rushed story changes, and a lot of development hell. Hell, the music that you're hearing in the background isn't even in the game. It's from a beta of the game. But I won't get too into it because there are loads of videos that go more in depth with this kind of stuff in the game's history. But on a more positive note, all these issues didn't stop the community that stayed from making amazing content. Thanks to the adventure maps, people made full-on story packs like the Return to Carnavalia, or hour-long movies like Sackboy and the Seed of Destruction. Despite the bad reputation the game got, it didn't stop a lot of people. Sure, a lot of the community did leave the game, but the people that stayed, they made amazing things. The community kept this game alive. Even for a little while, Sumo stayed for the series too. They even made a sequel story mode as a DLC pack called The Journey Home. It gives all the new characters levels based off the past games. It was simple, short, and sweet. Sadly, after that, though, Sumo Digital stopped working on Little Big Planet, and since then, there's been nothing for the franchise. Sony left this series to die after 3, and the only thing they took from it was Sackboy and turned him into another generic Mario ripoff. I'm not saying Sackboy Big Adventure is bad, but at the same time, this wasn't what Little Big Planet was about. And yes, you could argue that the game is only a spin-off, and it's not supposed to replace LBP, but just think about it for a minute. Are we sure that's not the case? It feels like more of a reboot of the series to me. Maybe one day I'll make a video about this game in the future, but for me, this just looks like Sony's attempt at trying to make Sackboy a big thing without Little Big Planet, and it just doesn't work. Hell, when the official game servers got hacked and eventually taken down, Sony made no attempt to care about it. They didn't even retweet the announcement saying that the games are shutting down. Is that really how you treat the mascot of your platform, the series that saved you when the PS3 had no games on it? It's genuinely awful that this series relegated into essentially nothing. Thankfully though, in terms of the community, the series is far from being dead. The community has gained a big resurgence over the past past few years, thanks to Discord servers like LittleBig Workshop and LittleBig Beyond. And there's a lot of private servers for the games too, like LittleBig Refresh, which at the time being I mod the Discord server of. All the servers I listed here will be in the description of the video, by the way. There have been amazing artists making amazing LittleBig Planet artwork too. And for the games itself, there's mods that are essentially just new DLC packs. This franchise changed my life. A lot of the friends that I have today, friends that you've seen in the videos, I met thanks to this game. And seeing this community and game series continue to thrive, it just makes me happy. Sony's a bunch of for not caring though. Not even a tribute to the games. So you know what? Let's fix that. LittleBig Planet for the PS3. LittleBig Planet.
I'm very sad right now.
Wow, Grandpa! LittleBig Planet sure was amazing.
Sure was, kid. Sure was.
Do you ever think we'll get something like this again?
Ha! No. The only thing companies do now is buy studios and then fire them 2 weeks later.
Oh.
Enjoy the video game market crash of 2035, kids!